Hi, Chris, Jonathan. Good morning, good afternoon from your end. We're going to start this webinar really soon. Just giving a couple of minutes to people to join us, and then we're going to get started. Hey, Mark, good to see you.
Hey, sorry guys, I was just texting Jonathan about my car broke down
Oh,
on the way back home, so it's a bit of a rush. Sorry, I'm late.
all right. What do you think, Mark? Should we get started since it's recording, or we wait a couple of minutes?
Yeah, can we see if people are here just yet?
Yeah, I see that we have some participants, like 17 attendees. So I'd say we just get started.
Yeah,
And then, we're going to be sharing the link to the video anyway.
sounds good to me.
All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this webinar about students' well-being and online safety. Before I introduce myself, I'd like to thank our guest speakers, Jonathan Lum from Boudica Schools Trust in the UK, Chris Allen from Sahwa International School in Oman, and Mark Fairclough from Securely. A great thank you also goes to Lisa Wilson from Teach Middle East and to everyone present with us today. So thank you for your time and thank you for being with us. This webinar will last for around an hour, and during the presentation, everyone can ask questions to our guest speakers from the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. There's also going to be a Q&A session, a real one, where you can come off mute, ask directly questions to the speakers and interact with them. So my name is Nabil Bouassaba. I am the founder of AI for Emotional Intelligence. I've been working with leaders, educators, and technologists for over 12 years now. So I know most of the schools in the Middle East, and I've been helping them or facilitating learning and improving performance in those organizations. I'm a member of the American Psychological Association, International Coaching Federation, etc. And my mission is just to help make knowledge and emotional intelligence accessible to students and educators around the world. So I'm going to start my very short presentation with this quote from Richard Riley, who's a former US Secretary for Education, who said, "We are currently preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist, using technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet." Obviously, he's talking about our kids. He's talking about the future parents, future teachers, future police officers, scientists, businessmen, etc. So the challenge now for every education system is how they're going to make this happen and face the challenges that could make it difficult to happen. So what I just shared with you has become the mindset, or let's say the holy grail of many giants like Google Education, Microsoft, Apple Education, and others that are designing solutions for education to encourage what the science or the research found about the new learning and teaching methodologies, like collaboration, independent learning, student engagement, flipped classroom, excuse me, and any other social and emotional skill. And all of this, or let's say this package, is really necessary to build our next generation of leaders. And when I say leaders, I don't necessarily mean a head of an organization or a boss. A leader can be a parent at home, can be a student in the classroom. But what I really mean by leadership is the mindset, the leadership mindset that every education system is trying to build. So let me share with you a short video about what All right. So schools, parents, and governments have come to the conclusion that it's pretty impossible to cultivate these traits that we've just seen, plus obviously any cognitive knowledge like math, science, languages, without the assistance of technology, which is a great tool, but at the same time has a number of drawbacks, such as the risk of youngsters being exposed to the external threats. We all know the problem of the internet that could really jeopardize the entire process of creating a generation that succeeds in school, at the university, and in the future. So the best school IT and technology managers, as well as the best education partners, are needed now more than ever. So I'm going to hand over at this point to our guests to share with us how the positive side of technology is making these great changes and how schools are benefiting from it. So over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Nabil. I'll just share my screen when you stop, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And as usual, Zoom is taking its time to let me do that. So I'll just crack away in the background here, but I'll just talk to you a little bit about while I change my system preferences, what I'm going to talk about, a little bit about Securely. We're going to let some of our customers and our schools do the talking today and talk to you about their experience. So I don't want to wax lyrical from the vendor point of view about the services Securely can offer. I want to give you a little bit of an introduction about what we do and the purpose of Securely, and kind of tell you what our mission statement is. So if I can share my screen just now. There we go. So my name is Mark Fairclough. So my role at Securely is the International Director, and I basically am tasked with working with schools across the EMEA region to onboard our products. And those products predominantly focus on student wellness and well-being, and also staff wellness and well-being. So we very much look at our ecosystem as the full school. And I'm talking a little bit from the perspective of the new normal, which is post-pandemic, and which has pushed a lot more of the journey we face day to day online. And it's important that Securely use those tools to indicate the emotional well-being of students and staff within a school. So Securely as a team, we span across a number of locations: US, UK, Mexico, India, And our mission and our drive is to be dedicated to student wellness. And we're tasked with inventing and implementing solutions which enable schools to have visibility and to identify students and staff who may be at risk. So you can see securely by the numbers at the bottom here. And the one number that I really like to focus on is the one that I can see on my left here, which is lives saved by securely. And this figure is really important because this is the schools that have come back to us and have said that using securely tools, we've managed to intervene and actively save a life using the AI technology and some of the really interesting tools securely have, which I'll touch upon here. These are just the schools that have had the time to come back to us in such compressing circumstances and tell us that, you know, the situation escalated and we were able to intervene and save a life. So I'm sure that number is much higher in terms of the impact securely has had, but it really reiterates the mission and the message that we have, that we build solutions and tools to be impactful and to look after the people that we deal with. So talking about the new pressures to understand, and these really for me come out of a post-pandemic. So young people are increasingly living a large part of their life online. So pre-pandemic, you know, online activity was still very high, but a lot of our learners and young people and the staff that we deal with were suddenly forced into this environment where their professional and their educational lives were suddenly online, as well as their personal lives. And it's very difficult to differentiate the two and the parameters and boundaries between how you interact with both sides of that scale. So we saw a lot of remote learning and teaching initially, and we've seen schools adapted to hybrid environments where they have a mixture of remote and on-site learning. And we see that with some students being in the classroom, some students being remote. So from a teaching standpoint, from a governor within a school, from a safeguarding lead in a school, it meant that you lost that personal check-in with students. And we found the feedback from our school that this was one of the most important points, that they felt they lost all visibility on dictating if they felt that a student in their care was doing well and wasn't at risk. Simple things about being able to see when a student turns up, if they're turning up on time, if they're turning up in clean clothing, if they look, you know, awake and that they've been sleeping well, if they seem well fed. These are all indicators that when you see a student and you see their behavior and the way they interact with their peers and the staff at your school, it's very easy to intervene if you think that there's perhaps a problem there and to have a conversation. Suddenly everybody was behind a screen and you get a very similar snapshot to what you have of us here today, just a headshot. And it became a lot more difficult for people to look after their students and look after the young people in their care. So with a lot more of that activity happening online, Securely really saw it as our role to look for those instigators and those triggers in student behavior and to be able to promote that back to the school. And it's something I can show in a very brief snippet on my slides here, and something hopefully that some of the schools on the call today that use Securely will be able to talk to as well. We also had a lot of feedback from our users who are our students that, especially in some aspects of school around exam times and key benchmarks and milestones in school, that students had this feeling of an imperfect and an incomplete education, which is very impactful on the well-being and mental health of a lot of our students. And again, we saw a huge spike in alerts and the things that Securely pick up online due to this feeling of being trapped and not being able to fulfill the destiny that people before you and people after you will have in school. You know, whether it was a simple personal milestone of attending a school prom or leaving party, or it was feeling that you weren't able to show your full potential by attaining examinations, which, you know, we took different courses of action all around the globe into how we provided examination scores for our students when we weren't able to be in school. There was an increased feeling of incomplete educations and working up to something which was never fulfilled. And of course, there's the horrible reality that in a lot of cases, some children were taken away from their safe space. Some children go to school to receive a meal. It may be the only meal they get of the day. Some people go to interact with their friends and to speak to teachers who are trusted people in their lives. And this was taken away from a lot of children. they were suddenly put back in that home environment, which perhaps was a place they weren't happy in, and they were more vulnerable in than being within the school gates. So Securely as a tool uses cutting edge technology, and we really are all about early intervention. Intervening early in a process where a student is facing some issues is proven to be critical to curb the escalation of that issue to something a lot more serious. So Securely as a tool analyzes signs of things like self-harm, grief, cyberbullying, an activity which mean that the well-being of a student or a member of staff, which I reiterate, because our staff very much were in a vulnerable position over the last 18 months, especially and now returning to quite heavy workloads. It's important to have those triggers to analyze when we should first have that conversation with somebody. So some of the things I want to point out, just as the headlines for Securely, which you hopefully can take away with you, would be our sentiment analysis. So I think this is really important, and really important about how we analyze the students in our care. So with a lot of technology, we're looking for quite definitive indicators. We're looking for somebody to reference a particular word which would relate to self-harm. And we're looking for people to reference weapons or talks of fighting. But that isn't typically how thoughts of a student and a young person will escalate from conception. So sentiment analysis is looking at the tone and the text and analyzing it based on its sentiment as it explains. So we're looking for those early thoughts of when students maybe need that help. And it might be a sentence such as, "I'm so tired, I can't take this much longer." There's no key words in there which are indicators that we would intervene, but the sentiment is definitely something that would alert somebody to go and have a conversation. AI that's built for education, so Securely only work with schools, and we're lucky to have some of our schools on today. So we have that core audience. So all of our technology is built and suiting the one audience. So that allows us to build a repertoire of student behavior, and we've been doing this for almost a decade now. And we also have human moderators who work with us. So they work building our products, and they also work with our schools for training or for informing them of alerts with one of our products. So we have a team of experts with psychology and sociology backgrounds who are trained to identify the most vulnerable points of young people, and again, intervene as early as possible to make sure that it doesn't escalate to a point of no return, or to a point where we could have made a difference earlier on in that journey. This gives you just an idea of that reference there. So there's a couple of sentences on the side of the text here. These are things that Securely would pick up on. So they all have different tones and different texts, but this is something that Securely would see the sentiment of those sentences, and we'd look further. And in a lot of instances, it might not need intervention, but we like to make you aware of that, so you, as the person looking after that child, can make that decision. So it's all about putting the information at your fingertips. I won't go into great detail on our products, but here's the range of products we currently offer. So safety and wellness are the core of everything we do. So we have products called Filter Aware, which goes into wellness and safety, and 24. I know that Badika, who are on the call today, will talk to a few of these products, which they use to great value. We have engagement products as well. So we involve parents in our journey, and we have classroom management products as well. So we're talking about the full student journey and making sure that once they're protected and safe, we then look into embracing education and building that learning journey. And we have some technology products as well. So we have an MDM product here. We have a couple of new products coming out, which I'm sure we can fill you all in about. But we also want to give you the tools to build classrooms so they're easily open and facilitated, and that technology is making a difference and not becoming a hindrance. So that's all from me. Hopefully that wasn't too sales pitchy, because we want to talk around the space. But I guess working with elite tools in the territory, just a few things that we can do very quickly and make a real difference. Securely solutions are all cloud-based, so we're incredibly scalable, and we can have you using them straight away. So if you feel like you need a solution which makes a difference, we're happy to give you access to that solution so you can see some of the data for yourself. We provide safeguarding support for all of our schools, so we're happy to talk you through this journey. Each of our schools has joined us at a different level in their journey, So we don't have set structures about how we work with our customers. So we're very happy to see what you want your outcomes to be and help you work towards them. And with that, we have unlimited training, both ourselves alongside Elite Tools, can train teachers, network administrators. We train parents as well. We train safeguarding leads, all about the practice of student wellness, because it's very important that you have a school and an infrastructure which works together to really implement a wellness procedure instead of assigning that to one person on the faculty. And then we're happy, as we're about to do now, as I'm going to pass over, to connect you with schools who've had an experience of Securely, let you tell them about some of the things they've managed to uncover and hopefully some signs of early intervention, and speak to peers about how you can implement similar practices as well. So I'll be around to answer any questions as we go out from here, but I'll pass back over to Nabil.
Thank you, Mark. That was really useful and helpful. A lot of information. Thanks for sharing. All right, so we are running out of time, so I'm gonna hand over to Chris quickly. Hi, Chris.
Thank you, Nabil. I will try and share my screen. Good afternoon, everyone, from the beautiful Sultanate of Oman. Hope you can all see my screen now. And yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation. And I just want to talk a bit about our school's journey of using Securely in our technology package that we have at our school as a Google reference school as well. We found that both work really well together. Google Suites, Google Chromebooks, and Securely. And so I was just thinking, I'm going to take you through a bit of recent history to do with school closure, lockdowns, moving to hybrid learning. And I'm sure you're feeling like me after a long season. I don't want to bring up any trauma, but I just wonder how you would summarize the last 2 and a bit years now. If you were able to, we were playing Pictionary and you're going to draw a picture, what would you draw as a school teacher, as a school leader, as a tech director? I wonder what that picture would have. I think for myself and my team at Al Sahwa schools, we would look at dune bashing, something I love to do in this region. It's a great thing about living in the Gulf. If you've got four-wheel drive, going into the desert and dune bashing. And sometimes you get really stuck and you need people to come and dig you out. And other times you fly over a dune and suddenly your axle breaks and you have to repair the car. And then also you have that great feeling of when it works and you go up the dune. And it's been a real journey of trial and error and rewriting policy and changing apps and relaunching things. And we have found that Securely's been helpful for that. And for me, I kind of summarize it as the molehill has become the mountain in technology, in education, sorry. Technology used to be an aspect of the curriculum, used to be a subject, and now it's become the way to access curriculum and access school. So the question is then, thinking about Securely and the way that it's helped us, is how can we safeguard and keep safeguarding central and important part of school life when we're living hybrid? And students, like Mark was saying, are doing a lot online, in person, online, and it's all kind of blended. And we still need safeguarding to happen. So I'm going to talk you a little bit through our journey from March 2020, how we ended up with hybrid learning and how we kept safeguarding as an important role in that as a school through Securely. So I think we're all familiar now with hybrid. I think in Oman now, thankfully, we're back to in-school. We've just removed masks. So it's been lovely to actually see colleagues and students' faces over the last few weeks. I think the Emirates has probably moved in the same direction as well. So masks have gone, we're back in school. And if students are joining online hybrid, it's only a few students. I will post a link to a video that we've made with ASA for Education, which tells our story, our success story as a school in Oman and how we've worked well with one-to-one Chromebooks. So what was our journey? The crisis really struck in March 2020 globally, and suddenly schools were closed. Found out that we weren't going back into school, and suddenly, had a lot to do as tech director. So thankfully, we were already a Google reference school, and we already had one-to-one Acer Chromebooks across the secondary school. Primary was a bit harder. And our staff and our students were familiar with Google Classrooms. So that became the backbone of everything we did. Everything was Google Suite, everything was Google Classrooms. And so it all worked together. It was March the 15th that schools closed. Then March the 21st was the great unblock of the Gulf, with Zoom and Google Meet and Teams being opened up in the UAE and Oman. Very interesting period in the history of education here and freedom of speech and communication, that suddenly they had to unlock this video calling software for communication and for education. So in April 2020, we moved to remote learning. We established a remote learning task force that was representative of the whole school, with members from K1 to 12 of classroom practitioners, and it was the teachers that drove the design for remote learning. We published a remote learning handbook, and part of that handbook from the very start is safeguarding. So our safeguarding leads were involved in that. So my question for you is, your safeguarding policy, has it got stuff about online hybrid learning that needs to be included now in safeguarding policy? One of the simple bullet points we had in that was no one-to-one video calls. And we decided, just as a school, this was our choice, even though Zoom at that time was more developed and Google Meet has now caught up. But at that time, we decided to go with Google Meet. That was partly driven by safeguarding features in Google Meet, that teachers could record lessons. And at that time, we asked for all lessons to be recorded. Also, Meet Quality tool you can access through Google Admin is a really useful tool that takes data from all the video calls happening in your school. And that is really useful as well for safeguarding and record keeping. Teacher-student host controls from Google means that students cannot enter without a teacher. So it safeguards that. In all these things, we're trying to think, okay, safeguarding, what would we do in the physical classroom? Leave the door open, have a visible classroom. And we want to try and do that also online. So that was always the kind of key thing to what we were thinking as we were planning this. Google Meet Quality tool I found really useful. So you've got IP addresses for when people join video calls, and you can look at that. And you have all the data of when students are joining, teachers are joining video calls. So by August 2020 in Oman, we moved to blended learning, and we had these very detailed descriptions from the Ministry of Education of 1.5 meter distances, 50% attendance, grade 12s were in, we had to have live lessons. And so full-time remote learning happened on Google Classroom. At that time as a school, we needed to upgrade to Google Education Enterprise membership, which was an extra add-on from Google. And that gave a Meet upgrade. And if you're a Google Meet user, as a school, you've seen it develop and improve. And now it is at par with Zoom, the features that you've got. Safeguarding was part of that as well. And that's where Securely became really helpful. So here's my plug for Securely. One of the features that you have, you can monitor where student devices are. Now that was really useful when students or parents or families were telling us that we're stuck in Malaysia, we're stuck in Turkey, we're in a different part of Oman. We could actually check that that was the case and where they were. So you can track their device. By January 2021, we moved to hybrid teaching and schools reopened across Oman. And again, we had strict guidance about 50% of students. Because our school is segregated between boys and girls, mirror image school, one side boys, one side girls, we actually had a week for boys, took over the whole school, and then a week for girls. That's just what worked for us. All the time this was going on though, and this is a really important thing for anyone in school leadership, is we had to have teacher upskilling happening. And we had a series of webinars on hybrid teaching. And what I would also encourage you is to also be involved in the teaching. So I was also teaching online, and then I could reflect on what we needed to do with first-hand experience of teaching a grade 8 class. We even ended up at one point broadcasting between classrooms, kind of a strange idea, that we had students in one room being taught and then a recorded version of the, a live stream version of the class happening in the other room. Okay, so just to summarize, how has safeguarding needs of hybrid learning we've had to keep, safeguarding at the forefront, but also how has Securely helped us. So like Mark mentioned about Securely, a really important feature is the flagging of keywords. And I have found this over the last 2 years that we've had different things that are searched, repeatedly searched by students, and it tells you the email address of the student. And then I have to go and refer that for a safeguarding with our safeguarding lead. So there is a search in English. Now, I'm not sure if it's in Arabic. So that's one thing I do question coming from an Arabic school. But the English, it picks it up and it records when students are doing that, and if there's a pattern in students in what they're searching. And so from firsthand, we have found that really helpful in safeguarding, protecting students and intervening, especially when students are not there and you can't see them. So then we've asked counsellors, wellbeing staff to have video calls and check on those students. What else? Net filtering is very strong and very secure on Securely. And we have the same filtering on our Chromebooks in school as we do at home. And being in quite a conservative school in Oman, that is a real peace of mind for our parents. So the system is locked. They can only search what they can search in school. Blocking and unblocking, and I often get requests from teachers to unblock. Oh, can you unblock this game because you want to play it? It's fun. Quickly check the game and unblock it. Educational, of course. So that's so easy to do, and I find that really great with Securely. And also, as I mentioned before, the device locator for students I have found really helpful. So that is a short, just kind of summary, kind of short history lesson. I tell you as well, I'm a history teacher, so that's where I had to focus on a bit of recent history of where we are and how Securely has helped us in a hybrid world with child safety. Thank you so much for listening, and I will pass back to Nabil.
Thank you, Chris. It was a beautiful history. I was listening carefully to what's going to come next. So thank you for sharing that story. Over to you, Jonathan.
Hello. Right, let me just share my screen. Hopefully this is going to work. I hope that hold on, let me come out of that. Right, let's try again. Share screen. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, so I'll start a little bit. Well, hopefully you can see that firstly. And apologies, there is a cat in the background, so she may make a little bit of a noise. But so a bit about me. So I work for the Boudica Schools Trust. So I initially actually qualified in tourism management, but I moved my focus and I spent 4 years or so accelerating through the ranks from IT technician to IT manager across schools on the east of England. I joined the Boudica Schools Trust as IT manager in 2016. And now I manage a team of 5 IT staff that covers a rough area of about 130 square kilometers, 330 square, 130 square miles or 330 square kilometers. I've just recently completed a 2-year term as a governor at one of our local primary schools, and I'm actually currently studying an MBA at the University of East Anglia. So a bit about Boudica Schools Trust. So we're a multi-academy trust responsible for providing state-funded education to about 3,500 students. So we have 10 schools, a mixture of secondary, specialist schools, primary schools, all situated around Norfolk. We have roughly about 650 staff, and we're actually currently waiting regulatory approval for a merger with another similar sized multi-academy trust in Norfolk, which means we'll almost double in size from 10 to 17 schools across the region. And I always like to plug this. We are an award-winning trust. So we won the Network Computing Award for 2021, along with our partners, Sisal and Eastern Voice and Data. And we won the MAP Finance Award in 2021 for Finance Team of the Year. So just like put a little plug in there. So what products do we currently use in terms of securely? So we use Filter, which is keeping children safe in education and prevent compliant web filter. It provides visibility into online activity. It offers age appropriate protection. We are a Google for Education mat, so we predominantly use Chromebooks, and it integrates with Google Workspace brilliantly. Our schools can download the reports for flag content and things like that, which is great. And then we use Aware, used to be called Auditor, now called Aware. It's AI-powered student wellness monitoring tool. Gives us a lot of visibility into, the mental and emotional health issues that are happening across our schools. Real-time alert flagging concerning online activities, and overall reduces the demand on staff time as well. It's a great tool. 24. So we've got a team of securely staff behind us, as well as our safeguarding team that monitor traffic, determine the risk levels, and our staff are then contacted based on our escalation policy, meaning that incidents are dealt immediately, even out of hours. So it's excellent. And then lastly, we use Classroom, Securely Classroom. It's a cloud-based device management tool, which means staff can keep an eye on what students are doing in real time and keep students focused on the task in hand. So why did we choose Securely? So firstly, our previous solution didn't really offer us an insight to what students were doing, and therefore it was, limiting our ability to paint a picture of individual student online activity. We also wanted to be able to offer a service to all our schools that met the needs, but also streamlined our approaches to trust. We recently put in a lot of work into overhauling all our internal infrastructure, which meant we completely removing on-premise filtering and moving towards the cloud, a cloud-hosted solution. And we're also keen that we moved away from being the traditional IT team response, which is responsible for everything in IT, and putting some of that control back into the school's hands as well. So a bit about the onboarding process that we experienced with Securely. It's really simple from start to finish. From onboarding all of our 8 schools at the time, it was a matter of weeks. We were able to get the solution rolled out. Staff trained within 3 months of signing off the order. So it was brilliant, really fast, great. It's device agnostic as well. So we're a Google for Education mat, as I already said, meaning that 95% of our device estate is our Chrome devices. We do use Securely's Chrome extension for our Chrome devices, but we do have a mixture of devices in there. We do have some Windows devices, in which case we use our DNS filtering, and we have some iPads where we use Securely's Smart Pack solution, which is brilliant. Just a bit of a kind of an instant impact story that I'm going to tell you now is, so we rolled out Securely at one of our specialist schools, and literally within 15 minutes of us rolling it out there, we had a flag saying a student was searching for the keyword knives. This meant, we could alert the designated safeguarding leads at the school, and literally within minutes the situation be dealt with, which wouldn't really have been possible without Securely. And we've evolved our use of the product since we first rolled it out, so that now the designated safeguarding leads in our schools are able to get those alerts directly, meaning that as an IT team, we can keep the approach of eyes on, but hands off as well. So a bit about post rollout. So we wanted to be able to roll out a product at scale, so that our service offering was the same across all of our estate. Securely aided us as a geographically dispersed mat, as Multi-Academy Trust, as we can offer support for filtering remotely. Ultimately, we wanted a cloud and user-based filtering system, which Securely delivered in terms of price. I think it's a great product, competitive, and against other solutions, it's where the market's going. If there's any issues that we flag up with any of the products, we get responses from the Securely team in a matter of minutes. It's been brilliant. Been really pleased with the constant drive to improve the product and offer new products to suit our needs as well. So I definitely recommend it to anyone, and I have done in the past, recommended to peers in the sector. Securely, I've introduced an awesome thing called the Securely Lounge, where staff can interact with others on using the product and suggest new features and things like that. So it's brilliant in that sense. And staff in our schools have been really pleased with the results and have benefited from a more granular filtering product. Staff can contact us anytime regarding filtering issues, and within minutes we can have these issues ironed out, meaning, of course, little learning time is lost. We can use the reporting tools to create reports about students' recent online activity, which are really useful for things like parent-teacher meetings, in some cases as well, where an investigation is needed into, maybe some inappropriate behaviour online. And due to the pandemic, we did have to delay our rollout of the securely filter to our parents as well, where they can access it. We're now looking to do this over the coming months across all our schools. And we hope we can begin to roll this out through the summer into the spring holidays. So what issues do our schools face with the online world? The Trust made a decision around about 10 years ago to move to Chromebooks, which has meant, obviously, on a device level, our students remain safe because they're really secure. However, like all schools, we weren't immune to the risks of the online world. Some of our schools are situated in quite deprived areas, which means we face problems like neglect, emotional abuse within households and things like that. But with Securely, we can go and have those conversations with students and explain why we're having that particular conversation about, mental health, self-harm, things like that. We're able to use Securely along with our other online platforms to proactively build a picture of the cohorts of students as well as individual students, and ensure that we stay on top of things and stay ahead of trends, rather than a blanket ban on things that as things used to be in the past on search terms and websites. I can now use Securely to look at what trends are out there and prevent issues. We even get situations where we're getting false positives on things, so that's great as well. So go back one, sorry. Like huge numbers of schools across the world, we all got caught out to some extent by the pandemic. We're not immune to various issues like the lack of devices. Like all of us experienced, mental health was at an all-time low. Families struggled because they lost their jobs, so money was an issue for a lot of our families. We have noticed an increase in online issues between our students, but also from others externally to our schools that we had to deal with, and a lot of investigating went into that, and obviously that was aided by tools such as Securely. And it's, the reporting is quick and effective as well. We didn't have the face-to-face interaction with students, and instead moved to online lessons with online work through Google Classroom. It was a challenge because we couldn't contact them as we normally would have done. So our staff were contacting students sort of fortnightly to have a catch up. But we were already lucky to have implemented something like Securely, and had a well-established Google Classroom estate across all of our schools. We also had an estate of Chromebooks, which was quite large at the time. So it meant that our deprived families were able to get hold of devices, and we knew that those vulnerable students would be able to continue in the online world safely and securely. We have experienced risks with hybrid remote learning, but luckily the use of user-based filtering has meant we can mirror what we had at school when students were working from home. And one of the key strategic pillars, we are a cloud-first organization, so it's one of our key strategic aims is cloud first. Securely, like any other products we'd used before, is unlike any other product we'd used before or looked at the time. It offered us a centralized management solution, and we wanted a product that would follow our students from home to school, so not being obviously Big Brother like, but to ensure that we were keeping an eye on our students and making sure they're safe as possible. So more recently, we started using Securely's Classroom product, which means we can drill deeper into what the students are doing during lessons. Securely gives us the that gives the power back to the teachers, meaning that they feel confident in teaching the students in their lessons, knowing that those students are going to focus fully on the lesson. We're currently in the process of rolling this out at our 2 secondary schools. We've just completed one, we're doing another one as well, and we'll be rolling this out to our 2 specialist schools over the summer, with a view that all our schools will be on the product before the end of the year. So thanks for listening, taking the time out of your day to join. I hope you found it useful how we use Securely, and I'm obviously happy to answer any questions, but I'll hand back to Nabil.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you guys for sharing this valuable information about how you guys travel through these, the pandemic challenge. But I'm gonna leave the space for all the participants to ask questions. They can either use the Q&A box or come off mute and ask questions. In the meantime, I'm gonna ask a quick question to either Jonathan or Chris about, so what's in it for teachers? So what you've talked about was great for, head of technology like Jonathan and Chris, and keep students safe during their school activities or beyond the school walls. But have you guys received any help requests from teachers during these difficult periods? And how Securely helped you with that?
I don't mind going first on that one. So yeah, I mean, it's helped our staff immensely. We get requests from staff all the time. We have an internal help desk system. They put in requests for things, like, as I said in my presentation, any sort of website blocks, anything like that. We're able to do it really quickly with Securely. It means, it takes minutes to change anything on the platform. So I think our staff have really embraced the change, and I think they've really benefited. I think it's meant a lot less time lost in learning, because it's so quick and easy. So I think from that perspective, I think staff really benefited.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd second that. Definitely the blocking, you get those, can you block this website? The boys have found this website, can you block it? You get those requests. And it's so easy to do. And I think it gives confidence to teachers, so often students are now sitting with a screen in front of them. And it's confident that they're not, on a website or playing a game, because we know that the filtering system at our school is so strong that it keeps them focused. So yeah, that's the main aspect I get feedback from teachers. And the other side is the pastoral staff who are very thankful for Securely being able to flag those things up that we've talked about.
Thank you, Chris. I know that Mark has been answering some questions on the Q&A box. Would you like to elaborate a little bit more about it, Mark?
Yeah, of course. And I'm not sure if we have a question coming in live from Kai. I don't know if he's able to speak or not. So I'll give a second. Kai, please do talk over me if you can talk. But yeah, we had a couple of questions.
Sure, Mark. Yeah, I mean, I've got 3 questions if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
For a school leader who's currently been dealing with a spate of quite serious inappropriate behaviour in the last few weeks, especially in Key Stage 3. I'm really finding this an interesting discussion. So thanks all of you for your contributions this afternoon. I guess, yeah, so I've got 3 questions if you don't mind. My first question really is, how is Securely different to a typical firewall that a school might already have in place? What additional, what is it any different to a sort of traditional firewall that we might already have in place, and how might that work?
I don't mind jumping on that one.
Yeah.
So we actually have we still have our firewalls in place. So the firewall almost acts as like a backup solution for us. If anything was to ever happen, we have got that backup solution. But Securely has the ability to follow the students as well as actually being a filtering on site. So it's as much as a school product as it is a home product as well. So I think that answers a little bit of your question there. I don't know if that.
Okay, so it is an extra level of security.
Definitely.
And it sounds like it. So I guess my second point then builds on that. So thanks very much for that response, Jonathan. If you're a school leader like me, and we've heard a bit about benefits for teachers, which is great. My third question is going to be about parents. I'll warn you about that one. But in terms of investigating, or maybe not investigating, managing or preventing inappropriate behaviour online, can you give us a little bit more idea about how Securely might help a school prevent inappropriate behaviour happening in the first place?
Yeah, I can take that one. So I think that one important thing to know is that all of our schools are completely different. So we have the ability to filter at home just as much as we do in school, but that journey is very different for every school, and we include parents and governors in those discussions. I think that in terms of stopping incidents happening, we obviously have the ability to block certain content coming in, so we can control what the students are seeing. So there's two sides to look at it, I think, is controlling what a student can access and making sure they're safe online. So we set up a safe environment for them to learn in. And then there's the element of what students can post and they can tell us. And that's really where the safeguarding and well-being element comes in. That's where students could post on Facebook, or they could have a Google search, or we can also pick up if they send an email or if they type something in a Google document. And those different touch points allow us to intervene and tell you as a leader and tell people within your school that this student may need an intervention of some kind. But what we're also doing is implementing Securely to stop malicious content being accessed, to stop inappropriate content being accessed, so you can be comfortable when they access content online. If anything inappropriate is attempted to be accessed, they won't reach it.
Okay. That's great. That's helpful. And if you don't mind, my third question, if you don't mind, I'd like to maybe ask all four of you, what would be your one tip to parents if they're concerned about keeping their child safe in a home environment? What would your one tip be to parents about keeping each of you can give us just one tip to parents about how to keep their children safer at home in this increasing online world for their and I'm thinking about teenage kids in particular. What would your one tip be?
I'll start because I'm off mute, and I'll let the guys chip in. But, I think deploying Securely is a great one because it gives you visibility, but I'm obviously going to say that. I think that it's about an open dialogue from my perspective. I have a teenage daughter as well, and I think that sometimes it's about letting your children know that you understand the pressures. Because when I was my daughter's age, I didn't have that online pressure. If there were any pressures at school, I could go home and that pressure had gone for the evening, and there was a point where things would stop. So I think it's a dialogue to young people that we understand the pressures of being online, and also maybe advising them to spend less time online. The difficulty is getting my daughter to come downstairs and sit with us and not be upstairs in her room on her phone. And I think that especially if you're in a vulnerable situation, or you've had a bad day, or there's a problem in your life, sometimes in sort of enveloping yourself in that online realm can only have that spiral out of control. So I think my advice to my children would be to take breaks and step away from that environment and give yourself some downtime, really.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Who wants to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next. I think I echo what Mark says there. But yeah, I'd say most importantly, and a lot of certainly the teachers have benefited from, but also having that the reports that our teachers can download and share with parents. so that they can have that conversation with the students as much as our trained professionals in schools can do. I think it's also, there is some responsibility with our parents, and we have two specialist schools in our trust. Both are social, emotional, and behavioural issues. So there's a lot of we experience that ourselves, and it's an all through school, both of them. So we have that open dialogue with parents as well as with the students, and we constantly can stay in contact with parents, carers, things like that. So I think, yeah, that would be what I would add to that.
Thanks, Jonathan.
I'll just add, I mean, one of the things with our parents, my only parents, most of them, they're very happy when we say that the filtering is as strongest at school. So when they're using that device at home, it's the same as at school. And they sometimes say to me, can you not block YouTube? Because kids are still watching YouTube. I'm like, but there's educational aspects to YouTube. So you still need to train your kids, don't you? The parents need to be involved with the training process of them being responsible digital citizens. And I think for all of us, we need to think how we act online. The question I have sometimes is, would you do that in real life? Online is now real life as well. So also think about that. And that's not just for children, parents, it's for all of us. Thanks.
I'm going to add my contribution to that. So I'm going to capitalize on what Chris just said about digital citizenship. That's the key, right? Because it's a high level of emotional intelligence. This is what schools are working on. But between now and then, I think as a parent, and I'm talking about my kids, enforcing policies is really important, right? Because before we get them to that mindset where they can feel responsible, as soon as you give them a laptop or a device and they're exposed to the external world, I think controlling through policies and smart technology, like how Mark described it, is really important.
Thank you, guys. That's very helpful. Thanks very much. I'll stop hogging the space now.
Thank you,
All
Kai.
right, any other questions?
Just from my side to cover off, I know we have a couple of minutes, some of the questions which people may not have seen on the Q&A. So some securely led questions. As we've just covered there a little bit, securely can filter students at home just as it would do in school. So we've had a couple of questions about, can we move that journey based on location? That really is dependent on the school. So you have the capability to filter at home just as if they were in school. You have the capability to be a little bit more lenient at home. If a lot of our schools sometimes open up social media at home, but we can still track that and we still detect if there's a concerning alert there. So the filtering's still working in the same way. They just have access to maybe a little bit more content. And the parents can receive those flags as well. So it's not always on the school. You can set that boundary that when a student is at home and it's out of working hours, out of learning hours, that a parent can take over that responsibility and get an alert as well. So it's really embracing everybody in that journey and giving visibility, which I think is important. And also one of the nice things about that, as a parent, you can stop access to the internet with securely. So 9 p.m. internet off, bedtime, which I find very helpful. There's a question there about language. So currently securely is in English, French and Spanish. We do have plans to expand into Arabic language, obviously, which would be advantageous for a lot of the schools in this discussion. So Elite Tools can keep everybody up to speed with that, but it's definitely on our roadmap as we deal with more schools in the region. And there was just a quick question about deployments. I think Chris and Jonathan both have different types of deployments. Again, Securely has the ability to be completely clientless, so you don't need to put a client on each of the devices. If you're using a Chromebook, for example, pushing down an extension is the easiest way to monitor that device. We have lots of different ways in which you can ensure securely sitting there detecting traffic. So if anybody wants to know any more about some of the idiosyncrasies about deployment and pricing's come a few times, then Nabil's more than happy to get you that information after the call.
Thank you, Mark. Do we have any other questions? I can see something on the Q&A, but I guess those questions were already answered, right? Oh, there's a question on how do you monitor the students' testing on exams? I hear teachers say that their students sometimes cheat on their parents or older siblings next to them.
Jonathan Lum's typing an answer, so I'll hand
Yeah,
that.
well, I'll say it rather than type it. So we have a lot of students who use devices for examinations, both official and just in class as well. Because we use Chromebooks, we can lock them down almost into an examination mode, which means they're locked to a particular form or a particular website or something like that, and they can't go anywhere else. So that's how we solve that one, if I'm totally honest.
We are yet to solve the problem of somebody having their mum or dad next to them telling them the answers, other than maybe moderating that via a video conference. But unfortunately, we don't have the capability for that just now.
All right, so I think it's 5:30 local time, 9:30 my time. I'd love to say thank you, everyone. Jonathan from the UK, Chris from Oman, and Mark from the UK. It was really helpful. I learned a lot myself. So I'll be sending the recording of this webinar to everybody, and along with my contact details if you need any additional information, and then I can refer back to Securely. So thank you everyone for your time. Thank you for being with us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.